Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education Center and PLAR History. So this is our second class for week one. So week one of term 1A, it started September 2nd and it's for 9 weeks. So we will end in October 31st, 2025. It is not too late to register for the 2025-26 school year. So everyone who registers for the school year will be entered into a raffle draw. So make sure that you're applying on or before September 30th. So how do you register? Well, you can contact your local DEC. DEC can do the application for you and have you sign it off. Or you can do it yourself by scanning the QR code. We have been circulating the QR code. You just hover your phone camera or your iPad and it will take you to the WASA registration.ca link. So it looks like this. So once you hover over it, then you click the link and this is what it looks like. It's called the WASA Distance Education Center online registration form. It will ask you questions about you. So if you attended WASA before, so you click either yes or no. It'll ask for your name, your last name, first name, uh, the number where we can contact you, your mailing address, and how we can get a hold of you. If you have completed some summer school, so for example last summer maybe you have attended another school, make sure you add the school name. If you have two or more to add, you can click that button where it says add another school. If you have previously attended, some of this information we have already. So if you have something new, like I said, if you had attended something over the summer, then you might want to add that so that your student record is updated. Don't forget to check whether you give permission to WASA for using your picture in advertising and promotion of the WASA program and events, and granting WASA permission to obtain your student records from your previous high schools. Okay, this will make it easier for us to assess which courses you will need for your graduation requirements. And if you don't want to do that, you can call us at 807-737-1488. We have education counselors who can help you with deciding which courses you need to take. So remember, WASA offers grades 9 to 12. You can earn your Ontario Secondary School Diploma, and you can stay in your community so you can learn from home. We have flexible learning options, and you have access to different types of technology to complete your work. So here is the Term 1A Radio Zoom timetable starting off at 10 o'clock. We have MAP4C with Kobe. You had your PLAR English yesterday, so remember for this week, because Monday was a holiday, we only had PLAR English on Wednesday. But it's typically on Mondays and Wednesdays, PLAR History Geography on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then from 2 o'clock, ENG4C, so if you need a grade 12 English, LNCAO is the native language with Margaret. Grade 12 literacy course, OLC 4O, that's with Jillian. MBF3C with Marvin, and MCT 4C with Andrew. And also the environmental science we have from 7 to 8 with Wendy. And if you have any questions about the courses, you can contact Mary for PLAR or Michelle with the other grade 9-12 courses. Just a quick refresher on what PLAR is. So if you are in the PLAR program, or if you're wondering if you should apply for PLAR, two things. PLAR applicants must turn 18 on or before August 31st. So if you're not 18 yet, but you will be turning 18 by August 31st of this school year, then you qualify. Also, you have to have fewer than 26 credits. So if you already have 26 credits, then PLAR is not for you. Okay, so two things. You have to be 18 on or before August 31st and have fewer than 26 credits. There are 5 PLAR subjects, or what we call assessments, because you have to take the culminating in order to get the equivalent credits. It doesn't mean that you have to take them all. That's why it's important for us to obtain your student records. It will let us know which courses you have previously taken. So once you complete the application, this is how it works. So if you have fewer than 16 grade 9, 10 credits, we forward your application to Mary. She's our PLAR counselor. She assesses the transcript. She submits the results to the principal. Then the principal then approves it. So once the principal signs it off, then Mary will enter the number of PLAR credits that you will receive. So some students may have to take all of the subjects. So if you don't have any grade 9, 10 credits, remember you need 16. So if you don't have 16, you might have to take all of the subjects. Some people may only have to take one. So again, it's not the same for everyone. So this will determine what assessments or culminating tasks are needed. Two options for students in the PLAR program. The first option is you can choose to complete the key questions from the lessons. So if you do these will help you review the main ideas and get ready for the culminating or the open book test. Your second option is you can just choose to take the culminating activity. Okay, now this is a good option if you want to challenge yourself, because the culminating activity will check how well you understand the material from the lessons. You don't have to do the culminating activity at the Learning Center. We can email it to the DEC. The DEC can print it off and give it to you, or we can email it directly to you. So it means you can do the culminating activity at home. Successful students, so when you pass the culminating, you need to have a minimum of 50% to pass. Then you will receive your equivalent credits, and then you can proceed to do the senior PLAR application and then work on your senior credits. If, however, that the culminating activity is not passed, then the key questions in the lessons must be completed, and the culminating activity can be retaken. Now, students are permitted several attempts to pass the culminating activity. Okay, so if you don't pass it the first time, don't worry, you can retake it. That just means that there might be certain areas that you might need to complete in the lessons. Now, if you have chosen to complete the key questions from the lessons, again, when you do these, then it will help you review the main ideas and get ready for the culminating. Some students do this because maybe they have not been in school for a while, so they would like to do the lessons instead of jumping in to do the culminating. This is what the study guide for the PLAR history looks like for this year. It will have the date on the top, 2025-2026 school year. All the information that you need to get a hold of me and WASA is on that cover page. It gives you the studio number. It gives you the radio 91.9 FM, or you can listen to us online. We also have the Zoom link, so if you want to call in during the class, it will give you the meeting ID and passcode. So this one is for myself. It gives you the office number, the fax number, my email, my work Facebook, also our link to the YouTube for WASA Distance Education Center. It also has now the QR code right on there and the registration link address. If you have previous versions of these lessons and you started working on them, okay, Do not throw them away because it doesn't have the 2025-26 school year. I will accept the submitted work from the previous versions of these lessons. So remember, there are 3 lessons and there are 41 key questions altogether. So it looks like this. Once you start submitting work, you will receive this mark sheet. So lesson 1 has 1 to 18, lesson 2 has 19 to 33, and then lesson 3, it only has 8 key questions, 34 to 41. Now, if you have started the lessons and then you find that, oh hey, this is pretty easy, you can ask for the culminating. So let's say you did as far as key question 10 and you're finding it very easy to complete the key questions and you would like to try the culminating, you have the option in doing that. Okay, here is the mark sheet for students who have chosen to complete the culminating activity. So this one is different from the lessons. This one shows you the different sections that's covered in the culminating activity. So this one says Women in Work, Canada and World War I and French-English relations. This particular student passed. Remember, the minimum is 50%. The student got 87. Okay, so that means that student got the equivalent credit for the PLAR history. Here is the link to our YouTube channel. Now this will include the new Term 1A classes for this year. So each course will have its own playlist. As you can see, there are courses there already. So if you're taking IL courses, let's say you're taking MEL, you can go to the MEL 3E that's in there to help you with the assignments. So check it out, and don't forget to click the subscribe button. When you subscribe, any new videos that are uploaded, you will get a notification. If you don't have access to Wi-Fi or your internet is slow, you can still request a USB of classes. Okay, you just need a USB port so that you can insert the USB in there. The way that's organized, you just click, you open the lesson, and then you listen or view the classes. So the courses are organized by the name of the course, in this case PLAR History. It will give you the lesson and it will give you the key questions that's in that particular class. So if you're having problems, let's say with key question 19, if you look at the list of classes, you would go to PLAR History Lesson 2 and go to key questions 19 to 21. Okay, that way you're not opening it and trying to figure out if that is the right class where you can find help for that key question. Also, if you need an email, most of you already have an email, but if you want an email that's dedicated for your school or schoolwork, then just let us know. If you don't have one, we can activate your email if you'd like. If you already have one and let's say you forgot your password, we can reset it. It only takes a minute. So the way your email is organized, it's by your first dot last name, the day and month of your birthday, and then at nnecschools.org. So here's an example. It says julie.andrews 1008, so we know that that's the birth date, August 10th at nnecschools.org. When you're trying to sign in to your Google account, please make sure that you log out of all your accounts before you try it. That might be the reason why you can't get in. Okay, often, we get messages from students saying, I can't get into my Google account. It's saying I need access. That's why, because you need to sign out of all accounts. And if you need help, okay, just reach out. Once you're ready to submit your key questions, or if you decided to do your culminating, you need to send it in for marking. You can scan your work. You can use your iPhone Notes app, or you can email or send it through Messenger. When you're sending it through Messenger, you have two ways to do it. You can take a picture. So this is what a picture would look like if you send it through Messenger, or if you scan it. So when you scan it, make sure you click save on the very last page that you're scanning. Okay, otherwise, if you click save every time, then that's an individual page or individual picture for each sheet that you're taking a picture of or scanning. Make sure that you're sending it to studentwork@nec.on.ca if you're emailing it. CC the teacher that's marking your work, so we know that we have work to be marked coming from you. Okay, you just need to either message us and say, hey, did you get my lesson 1? Another option is you can share your work with us. So if you're using your Google Docs, you can type in your answer there. Notice that when you're working on a document, there's a lock button, and share is next to it. When you hover over it, it will say private to only me. That means only you can see it. It won't let anyone see it unless you share it. When you want to share it, you click that button and then you type in the email of the person that you want to share it with. So in this case, you want to share it with me. So type in jmercer@nnec.on.ca. And if you don't want to do any of that, ask your DEC. Ask your DEC to scan or fax it for you. Or if you're visiting Sioux Lookout, or you're coming into town, you can still drop off your work at 74 Front Street. We're next door to the post office, the red building, or you can put it in the WASA outdoor mailbox. Just make sure you put your name on it so we know who submitted it. Okay, let's continue with lesson 1. And you notice on the cover of each lesson, I have included all that information again, just in case you need to get a hold of me. We haven't completed any of the key questions yet. We will this morning. Notice that there are support questions, okay, in the lesson. Now the support questions, you don't need to submit that. That's just for practice, because you can find the answers at the end of this lesson. If you don't have to do the PLAR history and you're waiting for the PLAR geography, if you look at the course calendar for PLAR history geography, we will be working on geography around week 6. Okay, so if you're waiting for that, that's when we will be working on the geography portion. Or you can go to the YouTube channel for WASA, and there's PLAR geography in there already. Okay, so turn to page 5. So we're looking at lesson 1 still, 1900 to 1939. It's about Canada at the turn of the century. We did concepts of historical thinking on page 3, historical significance also on page 3, cause and consequence page 4, continuity and change page 5. So we will pick up today with historical perspective. Okay, we'll just do a quick review here. We said that our learning goals for this lesson is I can identify the events of historical significance from the early 20th century. And I can understand the effects of the residential school system. Okay, first the concepts of historical thinking. So Tuesday we talked about that in Ontario curriculum there are 4 central concepts of historical thinking. The first one being historical significance. Basically, what this is about is why is this event, person, or idea important? Or how did it change the world or influence people? So, for example, the invention of the telephone was significant because it changed how people communicated. Okay, at one time, we always depended on the mail. Okay, when you're sending letters, that's one way people communicated, or the at the time how people communicated mostly. But then with the telephone, it just changed the way how people communicated with each other. For one thing, it was quicker. Okay, you just dial the number and you can talk to the person right away. You don't have to wait for the person to send the letter out, and then it's taken to the community where the person lives before the message is received. Okay, the second one is cause and consequence. Okay, this explains what caused this event to happen, what were the short-term and long-term effects. For example, World War I started because of tensions between countries, so that was the cause, and then led to major political changes and the League of Nations, so that is the consequence. So because that happened, then this is what resulted because of what happened or the cause. The third one for the concepts of historical thinking is number 3, continuity in change. That just means what has stayed the same over time and what has changed. So for example, transportation. Okay, transportation has changed from horses to cars, but what stayed the same? People still need roads to travel. Okay, so we're picking up with historical perspective. Basically, what this means is how did people in the past see things differently than we do today? So let's look at that. Historical perspective. So when we look at events from the past, we need to try and understand what life was like for people at that time. So that means considering their culture, beliefs, and values, which may be different from ours today. We also need to remember that people in the past didn't all think the same way, just like how people today don't all agree on everything. So even modern historians have their own perspectives, which can influence how they interpret the past. So here's an example. So you have 2 groups of fans at a football match. They will see the same game differently. So for example, the fans of the winning side will have a positive view, and they will usually talk about how great their team's actions were. But look at the people who are disappointed on how their team is doing. So notice the 2 different perspectives here. Okay, the one group on the right hand side, they're all cheering, they're happy, okay, because their team is winning. And then look at the group on the left. You can clearly see that the team that they're cheering for is losing. So, in historical perspective, we identify and consider perspectives of groups of people also not mentioned or briefly mentioned in textbooks. For example, indigenous, Inuit, Métis people, women, children, laborer, and other people. Their knowledges and experience often are not considered or even included. Okay, it's Eurocentric, which means it's been centered on Europe or the Europeans, especially reflecting a tendency to interpret the world in terms of European or Anglo American values and experiences. Okay, so according to SAID, okay, Eurocentrism is the idea that non Western societies are seen as less developed or inferior, while Western values are seen as the best and the standard for the whole world. So, this way of thinking often leads to misunderstanding or ignoring other cultures. Okay, here's another example. How did soldiers from Canada, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, and people of color perceive their involvement in World War I? So, if you look at this group, okay, First Nations and Métis and Inuit people or people of color, their involvement wasn't fully recognized by the broader Canadian society until later. Okay, for Black Canadian soldiers in World War I, their contributions were largely ignored. Okay, and their experiences of racism and segregation were not acknowledged at the time. So even though both groups shared a common experience of the war, their individual perspectives reflected their diverse backgrounds and specific challenges they faced. Okay, just because they were in the same place, that means that they had the same uh, experience. Okay, up next, if you turn to page 6, okay, the heading, the historical inquiry process. So when we're studying historical events, we often have many questions like what were the most important inventions of the 20th century? Why did First Nations agree to sign treaties with Canada? What happened because of residential schools? How did women in Canada win the right to vote? So when we're trying to answer questions like these, we use the historical inquiry process, okay, which includes these steps. So first, what you do is you ask questions about a historical event. For example, okay, what happened in World War I, or you might ask a question about a historical person, or it might even be a historical topic. Secondly, find and organize information about your topic. Then study and think about the information you collected. So again, this is your critical thinking happening here. Decide what the information means and draw conclusions. Then finally, you can share your answers in a clear and simple way. So for example, if your question is why did First Nations sign treaties with Canada, this is the way you would organize this. Okay, you have your question, then you gather and organize the information, you interpret and analyze the information that you receive, then you evaluate your information, and then you communicate it. So by following the historical inquiry process, you become an active participant in exploring history. That means you're not just learning about it, but you're understanding the why, so why it happened and how it happened. Okay, so you're finding out um, more information behind these historical events. Also, we need to look at historical evidence. So being a historian is like being a detective. So in order to understand the past, we need to find evidence, study it, and put the pieces together to discover the facts. So historical evidence comes in different forms. It could be physical, written, visual, or oral. So with physical evidence, it could be like buildings, monuments, objects, could be clothing. It could be written, For example, diaries, books, letters, plans, or receipts. Visual would include things like paintings, photographs, movies, or maps. And then oral evidence could be stories, memories, recordings, or songs. So these types of evidence, documents, records, drawings, and artifacts, are called primary sources. So when you're looking at primary source, we need to check if it gives us clues about the time period it came from and what else was happening back then. So what is a primary source? Well, it's something that was created or written during the time period you are studying. It's a direct link to the past because it comes from someone who actually experienced or witnessed the event. Even something as simple as a shopping list from 100 years ago can help us understand how the people who came before us lived. What did they buy? How much money would this have cost? So, for example, here's a receipt. It's for Dominion Stores Limited, okay, Canada's largest retail grocers. This was the receipt for December 22nd, 1933. Okay, this person bought sugar, and currants, and so on. So you can see the types of things that they bought. Looks like a half a pound of walnuts was also added in there. The total was $2.04. So a pound of currants was 15 cents. A half a pound of walnuts was 28 cents. And that looks like sugar was a dollar. Okay, so you can even notice that where we have receipts now, it's all electronically. Okay, it's printed. Uh, this one a little bit more difficult to read because it's handwritten. Other questions that might be asked was, what did they earn? How many people did they have to feed in their family? So it might be possible to answer some of these questions through something that simple. So it's a good demonstration of the power of a historical source. Another good example of written evidence is Anne Frank's diary. Okay, she wrote about her life while she was hiding during World War II. Her diary helps us understand what life was like for Jewish families during the Holocaust. We'll be looking at that more closely in lesson 2. She was hiding for 2 years with her family during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. They hid into a secret attic apartment behind the office of the family-owned business. So her diary was first published in 1947 as Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, and remains one of the most read books in the world. Okay, we're going to look at our first key question. Now notice on page 7, you do have the support question number 1, answer the following questions. Again, the suggested answers are at the end of the lesson. What are the 4 concepts of historical thinking? And 2, give 2 examples of things that can count as historical evidence. So you can try these questions out, and then you can check at the end of the lesson to see if your answers are correct. Okay, but for now, let's go to key question number 1, which means you go to page 33 of your lesson book. But before we answer the key questions, I'd like to go over the process where you're answering key questions. Please send only pages 33 to 37 of lesson 1 for marking. That means you don't return the whole lesson book to me. You can keep it And when you're answering the questions, use the provided information along with your own knowledge and experience. Okay, you don't need to search the internet or ask ChatGPT, okay, or Google it. Here is where you look for your answers. You can look for it in your lesson book. Use the information we've covered in the lesson or what we've discussed in class. This will help you better understand the material and practice critical thinking. So here's an example. The question might be, what is conscription? So instead of copying everything into your answer, try choosing only the key details. This will show me that you really understand the question. So for example, what is conscription? Well, in our lesson book, it says the Canadian government promised Britain many men and resources in the First World War. In order to accomplish this, the Canadian government did two things. Canadian men were called to enlist to the war effort, and an income war tax was established, which was designed to be a temporary tax to help pay for the high cost of the war. However, the tax continued after the war and is now known as income tax. So back to the question. Okay, what is conscription? Okay, you don't need to include the income war tax there or the income tax. Conscription meant that young men were called, or Canadian men were called, to enlist to the war effort. It means that they were asked to join the war. So don't copy everything into your answer, just choose the key details. If you talk about the income tax and the temporary tax to help for the high cost of the war, then that shows me that you did not understand the question. Okay, so if you have any, if you're not sure on how to do it, make sure you contact me. And then for those of you, and this is uh, for both options, if you're doing the culminating or if you're doing the key questions, do not use the internet or Wi-Fi to search your answers. If you add extra information from online sources, you could lose marks. Everything is in the lesson notes, or if you're doing the culminating, it will be provided for you. Okay, you just have to read the information that's provided, unless, of course, the question asks for your opinion. So that's when your answer would be very different, because you might agree with something and another student might disagree with the same question. Okay, so don't use the internet or Wi-Fi to search for answers. Adding extra information from online sources, okay, you could lose marks. Okay, the first question, all you need to do here is you need to match the correct letter to the four concepts of historical thinking. So on the left-hand side, you have the concept. So 1, historical significance, 2, cause and consequence, 3, continuity and change, and 4 is historical perspective. On the right-hand side, you have the description. A says, helps us understand what has changed over time and what has stayed the same. Okay, D says, deciding which people, events, or developments are significant by linking to current trends or events. So if you were to do number 1, there's also a column where you can put the letter. So which falls in there. That one's pretty straightforward, where you see deciding which people, events, or developments are significant. Okay, so for the first one, 1 is D. Okay, that's all you have to do for that key question. You read the concept and find the correct description on the right-hand side. Okay, up next is Canada in the 1900 to 1939. So again, in this lesson, you will learn about life in Canada during the first half of the 20th century. So as you're reading in your lesson, think about these questions, like who were the most important people and events from this time? What caused these events? And then as these events happen, what were the results? What has changed over time and what has stayed the same? So for example, here you see both pictures. The one on the left, you have the picture in black and white. And on the right hand side, you notice that the picture is in color. So maybe back then pictures were only in black and white. It wasn't as advanced. And noticed that in both pictures, people are protesting for something. Okay, they want some changes for something. On the left-hand side, notice they're all men, okay, protesting. And then on the right-hand side, notice you have both men and women. And finally, how did different people experience and view these events? So keep these questions in mind as you're looking or reading through your lesson. Okay, on page 5, you will see a picture of Wilfrid Laurier. So what is the role of the Prime Minister? So the Prime Minister is the leader of Canada. They make important decisions for the country. They lead the government. They represent Canada in meetings with other world leaders. They also choose ministers to help run different parts of the government like health, education, and the economy. So from 1900 to 1939, which was Canada at the turn of the century, Wilfrid Laurier was the Prime Minister of Canada. He was the Prime Minister from 1896 to 1911. And here are some of the things that he did. He led Canada through a time of big changes, like rapid growth, industrialization, and increased immigration. Okay, he worked to make Canada more independent from Britain. His government, they focused on developing the western provinces and building railroads. So the western provinces, okay, you can see that. There's Manitoba, there's Saskatchewan, there's Alberta, and then British Columbia. He also wanted Canada to have control over its own military, and he believed that the 20th century would be Canada's century and that Canada had a lot of potential to grow and improve relations with other countries. Now, some of the significant events that Laurier oversaw while he was Prime Minister was the Boer War, Saskatchewan and Alberta's entry into Confederation, the Naval Service Bill, and the Reciprocity Agreement. Now, Robert Borden became Canada's Prime Minister in 1911 after winning the election against Wilfrid Laurier. He served as Prime Minister from 1911 to 1920, leading Canada during a critical time which included World War I. So Borden's government made important decisions to support Canada's involvement in the war, including sending troops to fight alongside Britain. So under his leadership, Canada has gained more independence from Britain, especially after the war. Okay, and then we have the current Prime Minister of Canada. Okay, it's not Trudeau anymore. Remember that Justin Trudeau resigned. So the current Prime Minister as of March 14th, 2025 is Mark Carney. So he is the 24th Prime Minister since March 2025. He is the first prime minister from one of Canada's territories. Okay, he was born in the Northwest Territories, and he was the first to assume office without prior elected experience. He has a PhD in economics, making him only the second prime minister to earn a doctorate. Okay, so if he took courses in university and you get your degrees, so you get a bachelor, um, and then the highest would be a doctorate. So that's why he got his PhD. As of June 2025, Carney holds the highest approval rating of any Canadian prime minister, okay, at 67%. That people are happy that he's there. Okay, so those are a couple of things about the prime ministers that were involved between 1900 and 1939, and then we looked at the current one. Like I said, it's Mark Carney. So let's continue on with page 9, and then this is how far we'll go for today. On page 9, you'll see the heading, The Boer War of 1899 to 1902. There was something significant about the Boer War. And what's significant about it, or what's important about it, was that it's the first time Canada sent soldiers to fight overseas. So not just fighting in Canada, but they went all the way across to fight somewhere else. So it started in 1899 in South Africa, where fighting broke out between the Great Britain and the Boers, who were descendants of Dutch settlers. The war began after gold was found in areas controlled by the Boers, and many British immigrants went to South Africa to work in the mines. Now, the British government felt that the Boers were treating these workers unfairly by not giving them the right to vote. So, Britain also wanted to control the valuable gold resources in the area. Now, many English Canadians supported Britain in the Boer War, but most French Canadians and many immigrants from other countries questioned, well, why is Canada, sending troops over there, or why should they fight in a war that's so far away? Well, Prime Minister Sir Wilfrid Laurier wanted to keep peace in Canada and stay popular, so he was hesitant to send troops. So as a compromise, Laurier decided to send a group of volunteers to fight in South Africa instead of sending a large military force. So you can see where exactly is. Okay, so here's Canada, okay, and here's South Africa. So volunteers left Canada, heading to the conflict in South Africa because of the demand that arose among Canadians to rescue the victims of the war. Now, Canada was strongly linked to Britain, so they felt, well, we should help. The only province, as I mentioned earlier, that felt opposed to this was Quebec. They didn't feel the strong responsibility, and again, they were opposed to Britain's policy of ruling people. Laurier, the Prime Minister, tried to steer a middle course, but of course, there's a gap between the English and French Canadians already, and with this situation, it contributed to the growing rift between the French and English Canadians. Okay, so we can try key question 2 before we go. It says the Boer War happened in South Africa. What was the significance of the Boer War to Canada? Okay, so we will pick up with that question when we come back on Tuesday next week. So have a good weekend. Hopefully it warms up a bit. And I'll talk to you then. Miigwech.